Assalamu alaikum and good evening. Welcome to another episode of the ZoShow. My name is Zo. I am your presenter, as always, on this weekly show on Unity FM. The ZoShow is a show that focuses on inspiration, lessons, advice, tips from experts in their industry, and individuals who have really, succeeded. And they're either business people, the people who have really excelled in their lives. And I'm delighted to actually have someone today who actually has been on my edition of this show on two previous platforms. And she's kindly offered to come back again. And I'm so thrilled to have her on this show. So Bally Heer, hello, and how you doing?
I'm good, thank you.
It's so lovely to have you again, honestly, and honestly, I was, when I restarted the show on Unity, I was thinking like, you're one of the people that I wanted, I really did. And I thought, I know your story, I know your journey, and this show is all centered around, like I said, sharing that wisdom and lessons and life advice with people. And I really hope that people listening today and watching the show, can take some really, useful nuggets from the episode. But first of all, why don't you do a quick intro of yourself? I know you said it might be a bit of a challenge, but let's go for it.
Oh gosh, okay. So what do? I'm an estate agent. I have a few branches now, managed to go national. My company's Regional Homes, and we do all things property. Along with that, yes, I have gone more into public speaking now. And I also co-authored in a book called The New Woman as well.
Wow, honestly. Yeah. It's interesting because you came on my show, I think, on a previous platform about just over a year ago. Yeah. And even then, the progress that you've made has been phenomenal, what I've seen of you and what you've been doing. But how did you kind of get into the estate agency field and property? What was the origins of that?
It was literally by accident. I never planned to get into property or be an estate agent. Everything was more sort of circumstantial at the time. I needed work. Although I'd taken some time out from obviously having children, wanted to get back into sort of the workplace. And I was just searching for work, didn't care what it was. Ended up taking on a position as, officially it was a receptionist for another estate agency. But I ended up doing more than that whilst I was there. So yeah, from there, everything that I was putting into the company, I just didn't feel that, there was any gratitude or anything really sort of coming back there. I decided to leave. And from there, I just took a leap of faith and thought, right, you know what, whatever you've been doing here, do it for yourself. I didn't know everything at the time then, there was a lot that I still had to learn. But again, like I said, took a leap of faith and thought, you know what, just do what you was doing elsewhere. You've got nothing to lose, Bal. And here I am almost 10 years later. Yeah.
Was there ever a hesitancy of thinking, I don't know everything, or I'm not sure if what I'm going to go into, I've got enough knowledge for? Was there ever that bit of doubt where you thought, like, I don't know, I'm really not sure?
Yeah. Absolutely. I think when you're working for another company and you see people and you see sort of the setup and, you see sort of multiple directors, shareholders, a lot of the time what we think in order to run a business, it requires more than initially just yourself. Obviously, I've found out that's not the truth. Yes, you do need a team, but a team you can build gradually. But absolutely, I thought, how am I going to do this? There's like 3 directors in that company. How are you going to do this on yourself, Val? But like I said, when you have nothing, you have nothing to lose. So it's just taking that leap of faith and going, if it works, it works. Yeah. If it doesn't, it doesn't.
Yeah. It's a very strong mindset, and I think it's something that level of courage and resilience that you could argue that a lot of people don't have when they're going into business. And also I think the strength that, because you worked in the police service as well, is that right?
Yeah. And I must go always bring that one into
and I must go on record to actually give a little apology, and I'll tell you why. Because in the previous 2 editions of episode that I've done, I called it the police force.
Yeah.
And then I remember, I'm not sure if it's yourself, but someone did pull me up on it and said, it's not the police force, it's the police service,
Yes.
and that's a really important difference, isn't it? But the reason I'm bringing that up is because working in the police force must have given you that kind of, you must have learned a lot from working in the police force as well.
I think I spoke about this at Chutney and Chat, and one of sort of my characteristics that I felt was enhanced through working with West Midlands Police was understanding that my character had a lot of sort of, and we're taught to have control, a lot of control, and sort of, I'd say sort of, there's a lot of self-discipline involved in it as well, So when you're thinking of resilience and, all the sort of attributes that you think you need in order to sort of pursue something, go into business, whatever it might be, a lot of it was enhanced there. What I know today is I always had it in me. I just didn't know it, or I needed things like West Midlands Police to sort of bring it more out of me as well. It definitely helped. It definitely helped.
Yeah. What were the kind of was there, let's say, a particular experience or something that you might have gone through whilst working in the police service? Almost said force there, but whilst working in the police service, can you remember any times where you thought, like, this is really teaching me something now? Like, are there any examples of that?
Yeah. How unfair life is.
Wow.
Yeah.
Really? Yeah.
On both sides, within the service and, out there with the public as well.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say too much, as always.
Yeah.
And how it can make you want to make more of a difference. You always feel, I wish I could do more. I wish I could change things, change systems, change the way, things have to be done.
Yeah.
There are many things that I agree with within, obviously, the police. There were many things that I thought could have been done better. Or should be done better. Or handled better, should I say.
Yeah. It's interesting because that almost signifies that entrepreneurial side of I'm making the connection there, because you strike me as somebody who you want to change things, you want to do things differently, that you don't believe in just following the status quo. Has that always been something from your childhood and early years as well?
Yeah, I think if you speak to my family, they'll always say, that stuck out a mile.
Yeah.
From a very young age. I've always been sort of headstrong, quite opinionated, and just what I've realised is I've always followed my heart, followed what I feel sort of, been true to me in that respect. Now, some of these decisions may not have been the right decisions for me at the time, but I stayed true to myself, and I never look back on that and regret any part of it, because every single element of my past has made me who I am today.
Yeah. What's a early memory that you can remember, from childhood? Whether it's something that that taught you something, or something that was amusing, or something like, what's something that you can remember?
In terms of what though?
So something positive, something that you can remember, like when you were younger, that you thought, that you still remember to this day, that you thought, I remember that, and that really taught me something, even to this day.
I remember working in my father's business, and because he's always had sort of his own business as well. He's a businessman himself. And I remember in the school holidays, or, the half term, even the half terms, yes, Asian, we start young, But I remember working in my dad's business, and people coming up to my dad saying, it's not like she's 13 or 14, she's kind of running the show here.
Oh, yeah.
And they felt a little bit weird, but I was very protective. I've always been protective over sort of my family, my friends, just that, anybody that I know. I've always been the person to sort of want to help if I can. If it's within my control, I'd love to help. And I remember people in my dad's business, customers going, she's so helpful. Oh my God, she's done this. And is this your daughter? And I could just see it sort of from the start. My parents used to say as well, if anybody was going to go into business, it was going to be me, and I think business is about providing a service, isn't it?
Yeah.
So everything I've done, be it West Midlands, be it sort of my own business. It's all about providing a service, and I like to do that well. I like to see that I've made a difference in somebody else's life, because that's the most rewarding part of it.
Yeah.
So when I was little and helping customers, and I remember, even sort of choosing out outfits and dresses for people, because they were like, my daughter's roughly around your, and I was like, oh, then she'd like this. Then she'd like, I mean, I'm a woman and I love shopping anyway, so perfect person for it. But just, I used to graft away then, just as I do now.
Yeah. And that's obviously stayed true, isn't it? Now into what you're doing now, and obviously how you developed in business and whatnot. In terms of like sort of your early years in school and university and in education, what was there always that side of like you're interested in business, or what was it at school that you're interested in?
Playtimes.
The not working and everything.
Time, break, Those are the parts that I was interested in. Yeah. I've always been a more practical person. So I would love PE, I would love drama, I'd love music, but the moment it came to maths, it was like, oh God, is this what I've got next? Probably the last one in the classroom as well for that. I loved English. I've always loved English, so on that respect, I'm more of a practical person than sort of the one that likes to get down into books and things like that, and even today, I get a lot of people say, oh, have you read this book? Have you read that book? And I don't, to be honest. But ironically, they say, oh, you seem to have all the traits of what X person says in this book, or you have all the traits of what this person talks about in this book, and I'm surprised you haven't read that, because you would have thought that because you're doing it, you've learned that from somewhere. But everything I've learned has come from experience, the actual experience of it. So the practical side of things, when I was going for my driving test, did I like the theory side of it? No. Passed it, but it was the practical that I enjoyed more. You
wanted to do more,
so I seem to excel more by sort of what I can see for myself and figuring that out. I remember science back at school. You had a method, you had the actual experiment side of it, and then you had the conclusion. I had to do the experiment to understand what the method was to get the conclusion. I didn't get it before that. So I guess that's me in school.
That was your thought process behind things. That's how you do things. Did you ever face any challenges or pushback from either your family or even friends around you more creative? Because especially I suppose things have changed now slightly because generational differences now, but like myself doing things like art and design, for example, in previous years, and then mum and dad or other people saying like, of going to the academic side. Did you ever find that like with family? Yeah.
Oh yeah, definitely. My sisters, they all sort of traditionally sort of went through their education the way they did, and I have too, but I knew that it was never sort of, it wasn't satisfying me, it wasn't feeding me, I hated it. I hated the further studies and had to do it because obviously that's what you've got to do. But the moment I knew that I could, that's why I said, I wanted to go and work with the police, which caused great controversy to start with. It was kind of like a shock, like, did you even bring that up? Like, how did you even bring that up? Like, that's just an obvious, that's a no. I remember my sisters sort of saying that to me. But my mother said the same. She was like, oh God, she's saying she wants to go for the police force. And my mother sort of fobbed it off, as they do. If you've ever sort of had this yourself, one parent will say, well, if it's okay with so-and-so, your dad, then it's okay with me, hoping that the dad's going to say no, But I just approached my dad and I said, Dad, look, this is what I said to Mom. This is what I want to do. She said to ask you. And he just went silent, he just went really silent. He didn't look sort of sad or anything like that. He just went very quiet. And I thought, uh-oh, I'm about to feel the heat or, I don't know.
Yeah.
And it was almost like he went into a bit of thought and he was a little bit stunned that I'd asked. And he just turned around and he said, do you know what I was going to do just before I came over from India to marry your mum? I went, no, Dad. And he said, it's about to join the force.
Wow.
Yeah. And I was like, wow. And it was so weird because in my family, I've always been known to be my dad's favourite, and she's the one that's gone after him in features and everything, really. We found out today. But to know that I kind of felt like I was living his dream as well.
Okay.
And he was letting me live his dream. So, yeah, there was a lot behind that. I never knew. I never knew. It just happened to be.
That must have been so refreshing for your dad, like to hear that.
Yeah, I think he was. I think he didn't want to sort of shout it from the rooftops, but I think he actually was proud to go, she really is my daughter, isn't she? You know, because he always used to joke about it, going, that's my blood, that is, that's my blood. And, you know, the rest of the siblings didn't quite appreciate that. But yeah, so it was really nice, you know, to do that. And all he said was, look, Val, I'm going to say one thing to you only, and, you know, just keep my respect out there. That's it. What more can you ask for? Yeah. But then the moment sort of, I was very fortunate that, you know, my dad, you know, gave his blessings for that. But there were still problems sort of with my siblings. Oh, if we'd have asked, we'd have had this, and cousins and uncles, and, you know, people having their 2 pence worth as into, oh, are you seriously going to let her go to the police force? You know, is that what, you know, she's going to do? You do realise the hours aren't, you know, standard 9 to 5, and you know, girls don't do this. Girls don't do this. You know, and he was like, look, I trust my daughter. Yeah. You know. Yeah, that's so nice, isn't it? That your dad obviously approved of it, and he heavily supported you on that decision. And I suppose what the question I've got here is, I was interested to find out if anyone, and this is directed at listeners and viewers right now. What's your advice to somebody who, let's say, is going through a similar challenge where they're facing some pushback from their family, or even challenges within themselves where they want to pursue something and they're not sure whether through traditional pressures or even just confidence, how can they break through those barriers? I'm happy to say that, you know, I can definitely see that we've moved way forward than sort of over 20 years ago. You know, so much sort of nicer to see that there are a lot more sort of female Asians, you know, doing so much more than we ever used to. You know, so I do feel that those kind of traditions and norms have broken down, and I do feel that sort of people have been a little bit more supportive now because it's become a little more common. You know, but I think anybody that's doubting themselves in the sense of, you know, can I do this? You know, is it something that I'm going to, you know, want to do, be able to do? You know, you've really got to follow your heart. I've always followed mine. You know, yes, elements of that you've got to make sure that you know you're using your head at the same time. But until you don't try something, you don't know. You know. Until you don't try it, you don't want to live in regret. That's the main thing. You know, you don't want to say, what if? But what if? Or what would my life be now had I have chosen that? You know, or, you know, where would I have been if I'd have gone forward and sort of plucked up the courage and just sort of went for it? Even when I was going for the, you know, the police service, you know, there were sets of exams and things like that. There was nothing. I saw so many people dropping through the process. You know, and at one point I was thinking, I'm going to be gone too. Everybody's dropping like flies. They're not getting through to the next stage, etc. You know, but you just keep going. Yeah. And that's what I've done. You know, like I said, throughout my life, I've just kept going. You know, if you fail, I remember somebody a year ago, she came to work for me, and she was saying she wanted to go, you know, and work with the police. And she said, Belle, I know you've been there. And she said, you know, I've tried this, you know, 3 times already, you know. And I've always said, look, if you're meant to work with the police, you will, but you keep persisting, you keep applying, you keep doing it. I said, there are many reasons why they may not be selecting you right now at this point, you know, many reasons, you know. And I said, but when something is meant to be, so long as you're still going at it, you're still sort of pursuing it yourself, you know, and you're working hard, and you're doing it. Because what you don't realize is every time you fail, you should have learned something from that process, that you can take with you the next time you're applying. And each time you're just going to get stronger and stronger, and you will eventually achieve. You will do it. There's I always say it to my kids, there's no such thing as can't.
Yeah.
You know?
Do you often find we are our own worst critics and enemies even?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And, I've done that myself, I remember you pulling me up in our last interview, and you was like, you still find it hard to take compliments, don't you? And I still do, and I'm working on it. On it.
Yeah.
And each time, every day, I probably move a step forward in that as well. So it's the same thing. We all have these sort of barriers that we need to still try and break through. And at one point, like I said, I didn't know anything about property. And today I'll tell you, I'm one of the best out there, and I'll
love the confidence, honestly. I love that.
I will confidently say that, and that's what my clients know. That's what's referred on to other people. So you know when you're
and I can see that's confidence and not arrogance, because it's such a fine line, isn't it?
Yeah.
And I think the going back to what you said about me saying about the compliment, I think it's because you strike me as somebody who's got so much humility, and you want to keep moving forward. You never want to rest on your laurels, and you don't want to get comfortable and think that's it, like I've made it. Just before we enter the break, what is it about when people do get comfortable, and I think it all happens to everyone, and then we're looking for the next challenge or the next thing that we can pursue. How do we break out of that comfort zone, do you reckon?
Comfort I see as fear. Okay, that's the reality of it. If you are staying in your comfort zone, you're fearing what's beyond that, basically. So I think it's so important to remember that it's okay to stay where you are. But if you want change, you've got to create change, and in order to create that change, you have to move forward. You've got to just keep moving forward. And you know what? At the end of the day, like I said, what's the worst thing that can happen? You're going to fail, but you get back up and you try again. And each time, like I said, you're going to be better than you did at the last. The first time I did an interview, I might have been absolutely terrible, might still be terrible, I don't know, but the first time I sat down in front of somebody, they probably barely got anything out of me. Now I probably never shut up. So you're growing through that process, and it's understanding that if something isn't uncomfortable, you're not growing. You're not going to be able to get to that success, and they call it growing pains for a reason. Or get comfortable with being uncomfortable. I've heard that expression used quite a few times, and it's so true. And if you're uncomfortable, you're growing.
And is that similar to we'll touch on this more after the break, is that similar to your speaking journey now? I know you're doing more, like you've done speaking at events and presentations and other radio or podcast appearances. Was it the same with that, where initially you thought, I'm not sure how this might work, but then all of a sudden you just became an open book?
Well, I remember my first one, and so I think you share knowing how I felt the first time that I was speaking, and I see an incredible sort of change from back then to now, in the sense of, don't get me wrong, I'm still, believe it or not, I'm terrified of speaking publicly. These things terrify me, inside, but the way I see it is, it's like I said to you, don't tell me what you want to speak about today. I'll just find out when I get there. I don't want to know, because the more I know, I'll get nervous about it.
It's interesting.
So I'd rather everything just come out authentically, and it is what it is. And the same thing sort of with the speaking as well, from being absolutely, scared as anything, and I think the fear is, what are other people going to take from it? How are they going to sort of see me? How will they sort of feel? Because I like to provide something of quality. If somebody's asked me to come and talk and give a few nuggets and come and inspire somebody, and maybe give them a few nuggets of what they can walk away with, which might help them in their life, I want to do them justice. So it's because I care. And that's the only thing. And again, every time I speak, it's that step forward. It's always taking that another step forward. And And I always feel better than the last one as
The
well.
last one, yeah. And it definitely shows. Like I said, I think there's definitely that sense of you want to keep improving, you want to keep moving forward.
Yeah.
And this is, I mean, look, I think we've only just scratched the surface really with what you've done. And then, like I said, I think we're going to take a short break. But after that, we will be talking to Bally about her journey in not only her business going national, the growth of her business going national, but also we're going to dive more into her speaking, being an author. There's so many strings, there's so many things that actually I do want to elaborate on. But we'll take a short break now for a few minutes, and then we'll be back after that on the ZoShow. Hello everyone, welcome back to the ZoShow. My guest for this evening is an entrepreneur, a speaker, award-winning, a co-author. We spoke about many things with Bally Heer before the break. However, we're going to now touch more on Bally's, I suppose, growth of success is probably the right way to put it. In terms of, Bally, you're an entrepreneur. We've spoken so much about your business, about your early years, the kind of, I suppose, in a way, how the strength of your mindset has benefited you in so many ways, going to business, going into public speaking, we just talked about before the break. What I think would be good to touch on in the second half of the show is talking a little bit more about that journey, I suppose, from, we spoke about you went from the police service into property, estate agency. I think seeing the growth of your business, it's been amazing, because I've known you for a good probably 5-6 years now, and you've got, was it a couple of shops now?
I've got one over in Wolverhampton, one covering Birmingham, and now this March we went national to London.
Right, you went national, right? That's incredible. Yeah. When you first set out, did you ever imagine that you'd go national with your business?
See, this is the thing. I would say initially no. Okay, all I wanted to do was just provide some security, for my family. That's it. I needed work. I needed to pay the bills, and just find some financial security there. But then I look back and I go, well, when you were naming the company, you were automatically, even at that point, thinking of a name that you could take absolutely anywhere. So, you get sort of like Midland Property this and Black Country that, whatever it might be. And I didn't want to be restricted to one area because of the name. You can't take Midland Property, whatever it might be, to London, because that's London. It's not the Midlands, So I remember then, weirdly, still going, I want a name that can go anywhere. I want a name that can go global if needs be, So everywhere has a regional homes,
Yeah.
So it's really weird, because I didn't yet, unconsciously, I did, just with the name.
Yeah.
So
yeah. And they always say, don't they, that every company, every business has a story behind how they come up with their company name or the logo or whatever it is. And I think when you first, like I said, when you first set out, we'll sort of, I suppose we'll go through that journey in terms of how you went national, but opening your first shop, having the TV and the press there, was it, you were saying before?
That was the second branch. That was
the second branch, sorry. Yeah, apologies.
Yeah.
But when you opened the first shop, what was that feeling of, like, I mean, just describe the emotions, of opening that first shop.
Well, considering I started the business above another commercial premises, sharing, office space with somebody else. So it wasn't actually my own space at that point. But within sort of 8 months, I was on the high street. Now, that feeling, when I sort of launched my business in 8 months on the high street, it was phenomenal. The feeling was just amazing. And I was like, have I actually just got onto the high street? How did that happen? How did that happen in 8 months?
Yeah.
It was lovely. It was lovely. But again, every second, every day, you're grafting, you're working 24/7, it never stopped.
And I was just going to say that, you've taken the words out of my mouth. That 8-month journey to get from sharing a property to having your own premises. I was just going to say to you, what is that like? Because we often hear stories about business people, whatever. Like they are completely dedicating everything to that. I mean, how did you balance work, life, family, everything? Like, what was that like? Yeah.
It was very challenging, very challenging. Hundreds of different sort of challenges popping up initially. There was obviously the fact that I was a mother. There was obviously the fact that I'm the only person running my business. I didn't have partners or shareholders just to sort of fall back on to help with decision making and things like that. So everything is on your shoulders. You pay the bills, you pay the leases, rents and stuff like that, as well as the home bills. At the time, my husband was finding it very challenging, finding work himself. So there's one income alone, which isn't even a guaranteed, because you've got to make it happen. For the business to sort of run and survive, you've got to make sure that all the business expenses are covered first, and then whatever you have left goes into your home. So it was very challenging. I found myself, not going to lie, under immense pressure. It's on your shoulders. Like I said, everything's on your shoulders. But faith has a lot to play with it. Faith and determination. So I've said it before. If you really want to create change, and we touched on it, in the first half. You got to get comfortable with being uncomfortable. And that's going to take a strong mindset. Your sort of mentality has to be so strong, and you've got to know that you're going to get many challenges in life. It could be family, it could be again kids, trying to find the right people to work with within your business. I remember sort of like, if you want some cards printed or something like that, are we using the same people that we used in the first sort of initial place? No, because that was the first person. We didn't know better. Who do we use today? People that we trust. We're happy with the service. We know better today than what we did then. And I just think, again, a lot of people will turn around and say to me, Bal, how have you done this on yourself? And I know, yes, okay, it isn't entirely on myself because I've grown a team, but still, like I said, all the big decisions, and there wasn't a team helping me raise my children, there wasn't a team helping me sort of, do everything that's, concerned there. And I may have, my father back in my life now, but, back then I didn't have any family, no family support, due to sort of, personal things, going on at the time. Friends, I was quite a proud person, I'd say I'm still a proud person, but I think, I wouldn't accept help, even if it was there. I wouldn't put myself forward to ask for help, when I maybe should have done, but I didn't. So literally everything is on your shoulders. And the only thing that I can say is that when you feel that everything's sort of closing in against you, and a lot of people will feel that way, whether they're in business at some point or another, that we all feel like giving up. At some point or another, we will go through those days, and it'll repeat itself sort of each time you're ready to level up. Each time you're ready to level up and you're going for that leveling up, you're going to feel like giving up at some point, because the pressure that's the time where the pressure's most on you, and you're at that point where it's, shall I just stay here where it's comfortable because I can't take this? This is painful. This is really painful to grow, to go to the next stage. It's really painful. Or am I going to sort of persevere and persist and just keep moving forward? And that's where the strong mindset comes into it. You've got to have, the mindset that, what, you can do this. You've come so far. Look at where you started. Look at where you are. Can you see the growth? So it means it can be done, you know, and it'll happen again and each time after that. But myself personally, you know, I said it before we even started this, you know, I know that, you know, I'm very spiritual, you know, I'm not religious, but I'm very spiritual. And I know, and I think if anybody if you shorten it down to go, okay, Bally Heer, okay, she opened a business in 2014. We're almost going to be celebrating next year our 10th anniversary. And everything, if you really put it out there, everything that I've done in that time, you'd go, how? How did you do that alone? I was never alone. God was always with me.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
He was always with me. He's the one that that's the person that you cry out to for the strength.
Yeah.
You know, that's the person that you say, you know what, I know you're with me. It's that unwavering belief and faith that pushes you forward. That gives you that extra strength. And, you know, the way I see it today, he's my armor. So you can life can try and attack me as much as it wants to, you know, as much as it wants to. But as they say, no weapon formed against me shall prosper.
Yeah.
And when you know that and you see yourself as a daughter of the Most High, is he going to let you down? No.
How important do you think is to recall these kind of like important milestones that you've been through, you know, for you said the last 10 years or 9 years, but, you know, it's going to be 10th anniversary next year.
Yeah.
But do you often think that we as people, do you think we forget like what we've been through to get to where we get to?
I do.
Yeah.
I get reminded of it all the time because it's people. Like every time I'm introduced and when they give me an introduction, if you notice, you ask me for an introduction and I'll say, yeah, I'm Bally Heer from Regional Homes. That's all I do.
Yeah.
Okay. But if you go for Bally Heer, the multi-award winning estate agent, national, now doing franchises, public speaker, you know.
That's why I did the intro for you in the second half.
Then you go, okay.
Yeah, there's a lot more to it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And when you realise, when you're hearing somebody else introduce you like that, it's very humbling as well to hear it back, you know. But when you hear somebody else introduce you, go, whoa, hold on a minute. Girl, you've done a lot. You know, there's a lot you've done, and I'm very grateful. You know, I'm always don't get me wrong, I do have fear, and the only fear I have is that, you know what, nothing is ever guaranteed. You know, and things can, you know, as much as they've come, they can go. You know, and I think that's where I'm afraid, and I'm quite happy when people say to me, you know, I know people say you should own this, Val, own it. You know, look at what you've done. No, I don't want to, because I would never. I fear becoming egotistical or anything like that. You know, because the moment that comes into play, it could all go.
Yeah,
you know, and I know what it feels like to come from nothing, have nothing. You know, and I'm not comfortable there. That's where I'm not comfortable, and that's where I'll never be again. You know, it'll always improve. It's not backwards, it's forwards.
Yeah, no, I love that. I love that. So it's almost like always stay in growth, always stay in the growth zone.
Yeah, absolutely.
Rather than the other way, which naturally people do. They do the other way, don't they? Where they're sat in comfort.
I don't look back.
Yeah.
I allow other people to remind me of my past. You know, and where I've come from, or what have you. And I'm happy. It's nice to remember it sometimes. But I guess the truth of it is, and I've said this before, you know, when I do my public speaking and people want to hear my journey and things like that, you know, elements of that, I guess the reason why I feel uncomfortable, because it's taking me back to the past. And I remember the pain there. I remember the hurt. I remember how challenging it was. But I feel so blessed, you know, I feel so blessed that I am where I am today. And that I've been able to be an example to my children, you know, that they've seen that their mum has been mum and dad. I hold a great friendship with my boys. You know, anybody that sees me with my sons are like, you guys, sometimes it doesn't even look like, you know, when, you know, mum and just, the way a mum would be with, you know, her sons. And
mates, like
mates, exactly, you know. And I just wanted to show them that, you know what, whatever you want to do in life, and here, let me be the example of challenges, let me show you that I can be that example to you, the movie that you're watching on a daily, your Netflix series. Let me show you, that things will happen in life. Many things will happen in life. People will come into your life. People will go out of your life. Everything happens for a reason, and I've heard people say it before, they say people come into your life for, a season or, the reason or whatever, a lifetime or whatever it might be. It's true, we're all learning, every single day. And I remember having a conversation with my son not too long ago. And he said, Mom, do you know what? I'm cutting myself off from these friends and what have you. And I said, it's okay. It's fine. Because you're growing. Yeah. Because you've elevated, you've gone ahead in that respect. You're doing something with your life and they choose to stay there. And that's fine. And that doesn't make them bad. Okay. But in order for you to grow, it's success by association. So if they're happy here and they don't have that sort of aspiration to sort of grow themselves, and they're only going to hold you back. So you have to. Yeah. And, if we look past in our lives, I'm sure, Zoe, even with yourself, are your friends exactly the same set of friends that you had 10 years ago?
No.
They change.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean that they're bad people. You'll still say hello to them if you see them.
Yeah.
But you don't surround yourself.
Yeah. You've evolved.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Exactly.
So things.
And that's what I mean by, and it's just, I just want to be the example to them that don't fear these things, Yeah. Just keep going.
Yeah. I was going to say, because obviously it's clearly resonated with other people, whether it's your kids, whether it's, your clients or your community around you. Which is proven by the fact that you were a co-author as well. You're a co-author. Yeah. So apologies if I said author before, but Bally is a co-author. Yes. Just talk about that, actually, that journey.
Yeah. So this was a couple of years ago, Ritu Sharma, who compiled the book, The New Woman. Yeah. Basically, the whole anthology is based on many of us women, I think it's about 30, 38 maybe, of us that have shared, a chapter in that book. And just, you've got everything from people that have, suffered from cancer, people that have gone through domestic abuse, all different sort of whirlwinds of sort of real life stories. These are real life stories of, experiences that these women have been through, but they've come out on the other end, absolutely amazing. My chapter in the book, I chose to sort of title it, To Be or Not to Be, as the famous sort of quote goes, it's to be or not to be. And the reason why I chose that is because that's a question, and it was a choice. It's about choices. Life is about choices. We have, we are so privileged to know that we have a choice. Okay. You may be afraid of saying no. You may be afraid of saying yes, but the fact that you have that choice, okay, that's the privilege, so bad things will happen. Good things will happen. When the bad things happen, you choose to sort of either sort of stay sort of where you are and accept what's happening, or you go, hold on a minute. No, I'm the captain of my ship and I say which direction we sail in. Do you know what I mean? And there's going to be the storms. There's going to be the heavy rain and the hailstorms and stuff like that. But you are still the captain of your ship, so you take control of your life. And again, it's all about that fear, that fear that comes into play where it's stopping you. And this is what I mean by when I say, it's faith involved as well. When I wrote the chapter in the book, it was more about the case of I shared a particular moment in my life where, again, I had nobody, single mum, and I didn't have my business at that point. At that point, I was single mum on benefits, and they always say in our culture, in my culture, that where you don't have your father, God himself becomes the ultimate father, and it's really funny because knowing that he's there, it's comfort, it provides that comfort to go, you're not alone. You're not alone. I made the mistake of thinking I was at one point in my life. And ironically, nothing was changing, you know, but the moment, you know, I turned around and I went, right, you do your job. Yeah. If I'm your daughter, take care of me. You know, I believe you can help me. I want you to help me, and you've got to ask. Yeah. Because that's all it takes. Ask. You know, when they say, if you don't ask, you don't get. Yeah. You know, it's the same thing. And just trust and believe. And it's about blind faith at the end of the day. And I am the testimony. You know, I am the testimony. I don't care what anyone says. Just look at what I've done. Just look at where I am and how I can say I did that on myself. That's the testimony.
It's interesting how you spoke about that you weren't an academic person when you were younger and you didn't like books or, but then you're a co-author of a book. But the interesting part about that is the fact that you've written, you know, you're a co-author in a book. I suppose what I want to ask was, what's been the kind of the impact of that since? Because and before I get onto the impact of the audience or the people, what was the impact on yourself? Because I feel like whenever we share our journeys, whether it's through a book, a podcast, an interview, an article or something, what was it like knowing the fact that, you know what, you believed you weren't an academic. However, you're now providing context in a book to people.
I know. Told you I liked English.
Yeah. But it's just, I just found it. I found it interesting, connecting it back to what you're saying about not being academic. But what was it like when you shared what you shared in that chapter? What was the kind of how did you feel yourself, and what was the response of other people?
I felt very vulnerable. You know, because I was sharing real life experiences. I was sharing some detail in that. You know, you're always afraid of being judged. You know, it's not nice when you hear that somebody has been through domestic abuse or domestic violence or something like that. And I kind of hate labels. I really hate labels. And that's probably why. And it makes you, again, it reminds you of what you've been through, you know, and I always find it difficult. You'll notice it's happening right now, this moment, you know, because it's taking me back there. And it's not that I haven't healed and it's trauma. It's not that at all. It was painful. That's all I can say. It was painful. And I guess it's no wonder why anybody that had read my chapter in the book, you know, I was surprised that other people picked up those emotions, those feelings, you know, and they picked up, you know, what it was like, really like back then. And, you know, the reactions was, oh my God, Belle, my eyes just filled with water, or I actually wept. And this wasn't just from women. This was from men as well, you know, and that was probably more impactful, you know, to hear men say, wow. You know, and a dear friend of mine, you know, also stating, you know what, parts of this, obviously not all of it, but parts of it where I was giving that inspiration in the chapter, you know, I read this to my children, you know, and my children saying, is that Auntie Bally? You know, wow, you know, and just things like that. And that's when you realize that, you know what, you do have the power to make a difference. You know, it is important. Everybody's story is important, and not to hold back on things like this as well. You know, I was initially thinking, why does anybody want to know my story for? You know, aren't there 1,000 other people that are going through difficulties and, you know, hardships and hard times that I'm sure have also come out on the other side? But there's not enough. There's not enough of us speaking about coming out on the other side. You know, so, and I think there are so many people out there that really need that sort of encouragement, you know, because when you're in that situation and you're in those sort of dark days, you know, there's never enough encouragement, you know, so definitely, you know, I'd encourage anybody else to sort of share their sort of, you know, insights and sort of experiences and their wisdom on sort of what took them out of their time, because you don't know who you're helping out there.
Yeah,
You know, you don't know who you're helping and who you're giving the courage to. Anybody probably going through any one of those sort of situations out of all the women, cancer be it, or, you know, domestic violence, whatever it might be, you don't know who you're giving the courage to say, get up.
Yeah.
Take action.
It can be done.
Can be done.
Yeah.
You can create change for yourself.
Yeah.
You know, you don't deserve that.
Yeah.
You know, don't take it.
And in another spectrum, you were mentioning public speaking and the fact that you've spoken at some events.
Yeah.
And there's a big one coming up.
There's a big one coming up. Yeah, exactly. So I was, last year I spoke, was it last year or this year? It was this year, so sorry. At the Metro Bank in March, I was asked to speak at the Birmingham Metro for the International Women's Day month, and they asked me to come along and share my journey, which is very difficult to do in half an hour, by the way. So I did the best I could, and you know what? Again, I never go prepared. I don't prepare for these things. You know, I just go there because if I don't know my story, who does? You know, and I just shared my story on the day. What I didn't know, that present on that day was also the founder of Street Cred magazine and the Phoenix newspaper. And a couple of months back, I'd say 2, maximum 3 months ago, I think it was about 2 months ago, I got a call, you know, from Mark Dwayne. And he said to me, he says, Bal, he said, Street Cred magazine are celebrating their 25th anniversary at the Symphony Hall. And I'd really like you to speak, you know. And I said, what do you want me to speak about? He goes, Bal, bring the power. And I went, what's that? What is that supposed to mean? And I'm like, okay, right. Guess it's inspiration then. And he said, and also, you know, I want you to share your journey on, that's in the VIP sort of part of it prior to the main performances, and Damage are going to be there, and I'm really excited. Incredible. You know, many are artists, and I just think, wow. But again, you know, going back to finding yourself, your purpose, and realizing how the jigsaw pieces are all fitting together now. And I think the wisdom I have today, you know, is just, you know, it's obviously far different to sort of what it was, but you know, to share that with other people is really, really nice. And again, truly humbling that he asked me to do that. But I believe, you know, that there's something that he saw, there's something that everybody else sees. And even if I quite haven't put my finger on what that is, you know, I'm happy if it makes a difference. If you tell me, Bal, no, it really will make a difference. If you could come and do this, that's fine. You know, I'll do it. I'm there to help. That's what I think I've always sort of wanted to do from day one, you know, be it from the little kid in a father's shop, really loving, you know, helping people and, you know, seeing them happy and satisfied and spending a lot of money in my dad's shop, you know, to, you know, going into the police service, trying to make a difference wherever I could there, people's perception of the police. You know, because obviously people don't like the police, and changing that perception as well. So anybody that I can't change everybody's perception of the police, but, you know, anybody that I dealt with, showing that there is compassion. There are officers out there, you know, that don't let it get to their head and really, truly, genuinely want to help you in whatever way that they can, to going into sort of sales and marketing, you know, to then coming into property. And today I get to help people with all their investments, and I get to show them how to really turn that around. You know, so it's all about sort of serving other people, and with the public speaking, with the book, it's the same thing, you know. And whether I still need to have a little bit sort of more confidence in myself in the public speaking, you know, if you say to me, Val, I'll never say no. One thing I won't do is say no, because that's me again. Going into uncomfortable situations. You know, because I can't get comfortable. You know? So I've gone from speaking to maybe 50 people to 150 to now going into 2,000 people. I don't want to think about that too much, but you know,
I was going to say,
And you know what? If needs be, you know, hopefully the next one it'll be
But
even
the fact
larger.
that you're doing that, I think again that shows that you've got the courage and you've got the willingness to put yourself in that situation. And I think what I wanted to say was, just speaking about your energy and how infectious it is, and that determination from a young age, and how that's filtered through, to now. Is I want to ask just quickly before we sort of move to the end of the show, is work-life balance and how. I don't like using the word busy because I think busy sometimes can get misconstrued, but how productive you are, how determined you are in your business, in your family life, in everything that you do. I know you've had personal challenges, whether you were younger or as you've grown up. I don't want to go too much into that, like I said, but however, and this is very important for people listening and watching. Actually, is in your experience, in your opinion, how can people better improve their work-life balance, their time? When you hear people say, "I'm too busy," or whatever, like, what's your kind of advice to that?
What I've learned is sometimes doing less is doing more. So many of us get wrapped up in taking so much on at once. Everything. It's like there's some sort of race. This has to be done. That has to be done. No. Start with one thing, one element of your business, or whatever you need to do in your personal life, whatever it is, but take one thing at a time. It's better doing one thing really great than 10 things average, or not so great. So it's quality over quantity. It's me, saying no to clients where I feel come out of reach of where I feel that's going to impact quality. So it's not about the numbers, it's about the quality. And that's the same thing in people's lives, even with sort of when you've got kids and stuff like that, sometimes, and I said this in our last interview, sometimes it's just not the right time. It's not saying you won't get there, but it's not the right time. So you're going to deal with the fact that your kids are probably really, really young at the moment if you don't have support anywhere, or it's leaning on support and getting that support. So again, equipping sort of yourself with the tools of what you're going to need before you go out and do it. A handyman is not a handyman without his tools. Yeah. You can look like a handyman, but if you don't have the tools to go and do the job, you're not a handyman. You can't do anything. And that's the same thing with people as well. So if it's in your business, again, when I wanted to sort of go from one office, from having a successful office, that was the first idea. I just want a successful business. When I had that, then it was like, right, okay, let's open another one. Let's see if I can handle this. Can I juggle two now? Then it went from there, and the element of there, that's when other ideas, because once you've gone past the one, it becomes easier in one respect, but it does become more work. It's easier to put into place, but it can become quite stressful. Again, I'm sole direct. I don't have partners or anything like that. So from there, I was like, well, hold on a minute. Okay, I'd love to say that I've got sort of 50 branches, nationwide. But can I handle 50 branches? No. Okay. And that's where the franchise opportunities came into play, where it's a win-win. Yes, I still get to grow the brand, but I'm also giving other people the opportunity to go and open up their own offices. So you kind of still got it, but you're not physically having to do it. So it's being smart. It's working smart. Okay. Working hard is great, but you've got to work smart as well. So again, just taking on only what you can take on. Don't overdo it, because you're going to end up sort of falling short somewhere. It's like cooking and forgetting the salt. It tastes quite bland, isn't it? Why do I always come to food with you? I don't know why.
But it's always the focus, isn't it? It's always like you're saying, like, focus on your strengths, focus on
just focus on what
quality,
you can handle. Don't take on too much. Know that there's a time and place. You will get to it. So you just don't sort of run before you can walk. Is what I'm saying. So learn to say no. And just understand that sometimes, like I said, doing less is doing more. And that actually leads me on nicely to we are sort of at the end of the show now. However, one thing I really picked up on, and I know that you want to focus on this show, is about
not giving up, persevering, really, sticking to your guns and trying to succeed wherever you can. However, what are your kind of do you have any closing comments or final thoughts for people that are listening and watching?
Yeah, I think a lot of the time we focus on so much to do with sort of serving others. And I guess I'm going to speak more from a personal experience here, which I feel that many will share.
Please.
So, I've put all this focus on, I want to do this for the kids. I've got to do this for the kids. I've got to do this for my clients. I've got to do this for my team. I need to look after all those different elements, but we forget to look after ourselves. And I think looking after you is probably far more important than any of the others first. You have to sort of give yourself that self-love. I failed to do that. And a couple of years ago, I suffered from Bell's palsy, So, I went through that. And I think that was my sort of wake-up call to say, Belle, what are you doing? You're going around serving everybody else. Who's serving you? And if there's no you, then guess what? That's going to impact all these people that you normally serve, that rely on you, that depend on you, that need you, So, thankfully, obviously I recovered from that quite quickly. And I just decided from there, no, Belle, you need to look after yourself as well. And I think we're so scared to sometimes go and book in a massage because that's not seen as work. That's not seen as productive. But actually, it's so productive because you're looking after your own well-being. Your mind, I said first that you need to be mentally strong. In order to succeed, you need to have, such strong willpower as well. Everything's going to be tested. You will feel exhausted. So it's important that you find ways of sort of re-nourishing yourself, refueling yourself, in order to give more. Otherwise, you're constantly going to run on empty. So I think that's my advice to people, to take care of yourself as much as you take care of everybody else, because you know what, you'll find that if you cut off that stream, there's a lot of people that get impacted along the way as well. So it's not selfish to look after number one first.
And that is honestly, I'm so happy. I'm so pleased, by the way, that you recovered from what you did, because I know what you went through at the time. And I remember, it's, if that's not a wake-up call to people that are listening and watching, I don't know what is, and I think that's such a powerful way to end the show. And I think the theme running throughout this show has been powerful, really. But I just want to say a massive thank you for coming on. Honestly, I think it's been as inspiring as ever, when you come on before, even more impactful, I think, from previous editions of this show that we've done. I just want to say a massive thank you to Bally. I also want to say a massive thank you to people listening and watching as well on YouTube. If people do have anything that they want to ask Bally, or if they've got any comments about this episode, please do reach out either to Unity FM or on the YouTube channel. But however, guys, that is a ZoShow for today. I'll be back next week with another close friend of mine, Rahini Makwana, who Bally actually knows, actually. I'll be back with Rahini next week, who is a expert videographer, and she's actually also just opened up a property business, funnily enough. Wow. So we'll be hearing all about that and her journey as well. But thank you for listening, guys. Thank you for tuning into Unity FM, and we'll see you soon.